8 chess openings that look like somebody misclicked, one of them mating on move 6, and one of them beating the reigning world champion. Start with the one that ends fastest, the Englund Gambit. White opens with the queen's pawn. You answer a 5, and your pawn is just sitting there in the middle of the board on move 1 with nothing defending it. White takes it. You are a pawn down, and you have developed nothing. That is what it looks like. Here is what it is. Your knight comes out to hit the pawn back. White defends it with a knight. Your queen slides to a 7, lining up on the file behind the pawn white just won. And now white plays the most natural developing move on the board, bishop to f4, and that move loses the game on the spot. Queen b4, check. The check hits the king and the loose pawn on b2 at the same time, and there is no way to cover both. White blocks the check, you take on b2, and white's rook in the corner has nowhere to go. Bishop c3 defends the rook. Your bishop pins it. White breaks the pin, you trade, and queen c1 is checkmate on move 8. White never played a move you would call a blunder. Bishop f4 is what almost everybody plays. The next one ends even faster. White opens f4. That is bird's opening, a perfectly respectable move that grandmasters still play. You answer e5. Same picture again. A free pawn hanging on move 1. White takes it, you are behind on material with nothing on the board. This is Fromm's Gambit, and it has been quietly ending club games since the 1800s. You play d6, handing white a second pawn. White takes, you recapture with the bishop, and now look at what has changed. White's f-pawn is gone from the board. The diagonal running from h4 straight down to the white king is completely empty. White develops a knight. Textbook move, every book says do it. Queen h4, check. There is exactly one legal reply on the board. Block with the g-pawn. So, white blocks. Bishop takes the pawn on g3. Now white's h-pawn has to recapture, because everything else loses the king outright. Pawn takes bishop, queen takes on g3, and it is mate on move 6. 6 moves, start to finish. White's only crime was developing a knight. Those two were single traps. This next one is an ecosystem of them. The Stafford Gambit. It grows out of Petrov's defense, which is the quietest opening in chess, and then black offers a whole knight for a pawn. White has to take it. Declining leaves. Black comfortable, so white takes the knight, and black recaptures with a pawn. Black is now a clean piece down with a damaged pawn structure on move 4. Count what black bought with that piece. Both bishops aimed straight at the white king. An open file for a rook, the moment it moves. And a knight that spends the rest of the game jumping into squares white cannot cover. Here is the trap that ends most of these games. White plays d3, sensible. Black develops the bishop, sensible. White pins the knight with bishop to g5, which is the move every club player makes automatically, and it is already lost. Knight takes a 4, it hangs the queen, and black does not care. White takes the queen, bishop takes f2 with check, the king is forced to e2, bishop g4, checkmate. Black is a queen and a knight down at the moment he delivers mate. So far, black has been the one throwing material away. The next gambit is older than all of them, and it belongs to white's side of the argument. The king's gambit is famous. White throws the f-pawn away on move 2, opens a file at black's king, and attacks. It has been played for 400 years. The Latvian Gambit is the same idea with the colors reversed. White opens the king's pawn, black answers. White develops the knight to attack the pawn, and instead of defending it, black plays f5. Now count everything wrong with this. Black is attacking with a pawn that nothing defends, has torn open the shelter in front of his own king, and is a full move behind. Every engine on Earth says black is worse here, and every engine is correct. Every engine also plays at 3,500. Your opponent does not. Take the pawn, and black brings the queen to f6, hitting the knight and staring down the center. Chase the queen and black recaptures, and now the f-file is open and pointing directly at white's weakest square, with white's queenside pieces still asleep on the back rank. Objectively bad, practically miserable to sit across from. Everything so far cost a pawn. This one costs a whole piece, on move 4, and white is the one paying. The Latvian Gambit. It begins as the 4 knights, which is the most symmetrical, most harmless opening there is. Both sides develop both knights, nothing has happened, and then white plays, knight takes e5. That is a knight for a pawn. No trap behind it, no clever follow-up if black just takes. Black takes, and black is up a full piece. What white gets is the entire center. Pawn to d4 kicks the knight. Pawn to a5 kicks the other one. Inside 4 moves, white has 2 pawns abreast in the middle of the board, and black's knights have been chased back to the squares they started on. Black is a piece up and has nothing developed. White is a piece down and has everything developed. In a database, that trade is bad. Across a board, with a clock running, against somebody who has never seen this position, it is a nightmare. The gambit is named for the trick or treat. You are giving something away at the door, and you are expecting something back. Now the one where black refuses to defend at all. The fried liver attack is the oldest lesson in chess. White brings out a bishop and a knight, jumps into g5 and hits f7, the square that only the king defends. The whole point is that black must react. The Traxler Counterattack is black saying no. White plays knight g5, attacking f7 and threatening to win material immediately. Black plays bishop c5. Not a defense. A counter threat, pointing at white's own weak square. White takes on f7 anyway, forking queen and rook. Black ignores that too, and plays bishop takes f2 with check. The white king has to take, because leaving the bishop there is worse. Now the king is standing on f2 in the middle of an open board on move 6. Knight takes e4, check. The king runs. Queen h4, and black has 3 pieces aimed at a king that has no home. Black is down material in almost every line of this, and has been drawing and winning with it for 130 years. Every opening so far belongs to club players. This next one was played by a 2,700 grandmaster against the man who would become world champion. The Cochrane Gambit. Petrov's defense again. The quiet one. White takes the pawn on a5, black attacks the knight with d6, and instead of retreating, white plays knight takes f7. A knight for a pawn, and the black king is dragged out onto f7 on move 4. It cannot castle again for the rest of the game. Linares, 1999. Veselin Topalov played this against Vladimir Kramnik. Kramnik was 1 year away from taking the world title, and the hardest man alive to break down. Watch how a world champion answers a move 4 piece sacrifice. He does not panic, and he does not grab. Bishop to e6 to trade off the attacker. King back towards safety the moment the pieces come off. Knight to c6, developing, refusing to be rushed. The game was drawn. Topalov gave away a piece on move 4 against the hardest man in the world to beat, and walked away with half a point. That is the whole case for the Cochrane. Nobody claims it wins by force. What it does is hand your opponent 40 moves of perfect defense to find, over the board, on a clock. Almost nobody finds them. And the one that ends the list. The ugliest first move in chess. 1980, the European Team Championship in Skara. Anatoly Karpov is world champion, and has been for 5 years. Across the board sits Tony Miles, England's first grandmaster. Miles answers the king's pawn with a 6. Not a developing move, not a center move. A rook's pawn, 1 square, doing nothing, on move 1. It is called the St. George defense, and at the time it was a joke. Karpov does what a world champion does. He takes the center with both pawns, develops everything, castles, and by move 15 he has the position every textbook promises for white. Then, the position slowly stops making sense. The bishop Miles fianchettoed on b7 starts cutting across the board. The queenside pawns Karpov advanced become targets. Miles trades queens into an endgame a pawn up, and grinds it. 46 moves. Karpov resigned. The reigning world champion, with white, lost a full game to a rook's pawn move. The point was never that a 6 is a good move. The point was that Karpov had never spent 1 minute of his life preparing against it, and Miles had spent months preparing with it. Weird is not the same as bad.